Hello, everybody. I hope that you're all feeling good. I hope that your week went well. My week was kind of a mixed bag. As I've said, I've been fighting the flu. Nothing too serious, just seasonal flu. But it can hit you pretty hard. Then your whole week's kind of ruined. But we're going through it. So a lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of stuff to cover because there's a lot of things that went down this week. Mostly good, but also some stuff that's worrying. I don't know, is it weirder with regards to Trump that he drinks that he doesn't drink? No, would it be weirder? I lost my train of thought there. I almost feel like it would be less weird with Trump if he did drink, because then you could
I don't
blame
know.
like
Is it
some of
weirder?
his strange behavior on being drunk, but he doesn't, which is odd. Because it says and does some really weird stuff. I was talking to my father. So my father's like a center right Canadian guy. He's like conservative ish by Canadian standards, mostly just kind of chill and reasonable. He gets along with just about everybody. But I was talking to him about Trump and I said, you know, I find him a very enigmatic political figure because I can't tell how smart Trump is. Like a lot of politicians, you can eventually kind of get a read on them. I find him very hard to get a read on because he'll say or do something really clever and cunning and insightful. Um, and then all of a sudden, like, he'll do something completely retarded. And these two things will follow each other, like, in rapid succession. And you're just kind of left shaking your head and going, huh? What? What's even happening? And we had that a lot this week, like, because we'll get into it in a bit, but he said some stuff about Russia that was like really insightful, and Putin was happy about it, and stuff like that, and people were like saying, "Oh, this is a massive step forward to solving the crisis," and then he just like went off script and said a bunch of just really weird, crazy. I don't know if unhinged is the right term, but just bizarre stuff. So I never can tell. Like, is Trump intelligent? Is he dumb? Is it an act? Is it a 4D chess plan? Is he just equal parts like genius and retarded? Like it's very hard to tell. Um, and you find this like with everything. Like half the time he does something really genius, and then half the time it's something just intensely stupid. I know a lot of this is probably like art of the deal shit, and that this is him like trying to manipulate people or get around or whatever, but it's something. We are living in the Trump era, I guess. So we'll get into that in a moment. But let me see. Why don't we do a Ukraine update to start off with? UA Ukraine. So Schrodinger's war continues, more or less. We'll get into the Trump stuff in a bit. I just gonna give people a chance to show up. We're just gonna talk about this. So, to my understanding, and Constantine has confirmed this with me, there is basically two fortified cities left in Donbass, the main front of the war. There is Prokhorovsk, which is this Prokhorovsk? One second. I always am bad with the specifics of the front line. Let me see. Where is it? Pokrovsk it's in Donetsk. Uh, so that would be over here. Pokrovsk. Sorry, I'm bad at like the Slavic pronunciations. It's that. Show your Discord. What does that mean? Why would I show my Discord? I okay, whatever. Anyways, where was I? I'm just trying to find where Pokorosk is. Wow. This is why you follow me for this like high quality prepared content. I think that this is it. Let's see. Oh, invite. Okay, you want the invite link. Okay, that's what you're talking about. I had this earlier. I just kind of forgot where it was. Where are we? Maybe I'll post that later. Sorry, one second. Someone's messaging me. Okay, where was I? Volkarovsk. I'm just looking where this is. Okay, so that's in Donetsk. The other issue is like the map that they have is not the best. Because it sometimes doesn't really have the English names listed, and I don't speak Ukrainian, so I can find it a little confusing. I think that that is it, but I could be wrong. I'm just trying to find Donetsk. Constantine, do you know where it is? I'm just having trouble. There's unfortunately no like search feature for some reason, because that wouldn't be helpful, I guess. If you're covering a war to have like a way of searching specific locations in said war. But um wow. Anyways, I think that that is there we go, Pokorosk. Okay. So, sorry about that. Okay, so this is one of the two remaining fortified cities that are left in Donetsk, in Donbass. So, if we take a look at the last couple weeks, you can tell that the Russians are making pretty rapid progress as far as this war goes. So, this is like the last week or so. They're quickly encircling it and moving in to attack it. They're eventually going to, it looks like, encircle it, and we're going to have another cauldron type situation. This is, I think, along with Chasiv Yar, the last fortified city in Donbass. And then after this and Chasiv Yar are gone, Chasiv Yar, which is taking a really long time for some reason. I think it's because it's very fortified and there's a bunch of canals there. But after Chasiv Yar fails, I don't think there's really any fortifications between there and the Dnieper. So I don't know what Russia is going to do at that point in time. If they're going to just press towards it, if they're going to keep creeping forward, if there's going to eventually be some sort of offensive in the south to try to take the rest of Zaporozhye and Kherson, I'm not really sure. I don't know if the Russians even necessarily know either, but they're just kind of going along. Um, the Kursk pocket is gradually getting shut down. The thing you have to keep in mind is that the Ukrainians are just rushing everything they have there. Now, Ukraine does not have strategic reserves anymore, so everything they're rushing there is either recently mobilized troops or they're just pulling people off the line down here in order to go through with it. So, just a little bit of that. With regards to Syria, not that much is happening. There's just some skirmishes going on between the Turks and the uh, Kurds. It doesn't look like full scale civil war has broken out yet. And of course, Israel continues to occupy their part of Syria. They didn't really seem to go very far inland. It looks like they've captured the rest of Golan, but they haven't really gone beyond that. Okay, so let's get to the Donald. So we had some like weird stuff with Trump this week. So Trump said something like really insightful about Russia. Trump. I'm trying to find. He said something very. I was trying to find it. I should have gotten the clip together. Uh. Okay, here
Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. That war could escalate to be much worse than it is right now. You know, a big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. Now, they've said that that's been like written in stone. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. But there were a lot of mistakes made in that negotiation. And when
So Trump said that. So I think it's Peskov. I think it's Peskov, Putin's spokesman. Trump, Russia. So I think it was Peskov or whatever the name is of the Putin spokesman. Peskov said, well, this is progress. He said, look, this is the first time a leader of the West has actually addressed our concerns. This is the first time that like somebody's actually listened to us and said, okay, this is what the war was about. And they're like, this is progress. We're actually getting somewhere now. Someone's actually listening to us. Because one of the big issues with this entire conflict is the West doesn't listen to Russia when Russia talks. Like, it doesn't really matter if you think Putin's full of shit, if you think this whole thing was a land grab or whatever. The Russians are very clear about why they started this war, what their goals are, and what their demands are for the war to end. And these things generally just get ignored, and you'll hear them frequently go, oh, well, Russia doesn't want to negotiate, but like Russia has said since day one that they want to negotiate. Now, you could argue that they're not going to negotiate in good faith or it's going to be a front or something, but Russia has never said they weren't willing to negotiate. However, the West has continually said that Russia is unwilling to negotiate. So Peskov was really like positive about that. He's like, look, we can actually maybe have a conversation. Trump has come out and said, I want to meet with. Trump said that he wanted to meet with Putin immediately. Where is it? Here we go. Trump said he wanted to meet with Putin immediately to secure end of Russo-Ukraine war. I would really like to be able to meet with President Putin to get that war ended. This was his speech to the World Economic Forum at Davos. So it looked like everything was going really well. It looks like things were heading in the right direction. Trump was actually saying the right things. Russia was receptive to it. And then he did this post on... He did a couple really bizarre things. Okay, let me see here. Trump, Russia, 1 million. Let me see if this is up. Where is this? Let's try to find the... Yeah, here we go. We had this.
Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. He should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. I have to speak to President Putin. We're going to have to find out. He can't be thrilled. He's not doing so well. I mean, he's grinding it out, but most people thought that war would have been over in about 1 week. And now you're into 3 years, right? So he can't be thrilled. It's not making him look very good.
Yeah, like once again, Trump needs to stop just doing these impromptu off the cup remarks. Like I get that he's super like tired because that was on Monday and he just signed all the executive orders. He'd been through three balls. But he really shouldn't have been talking to the press because he just kind of rambled on and said like a bunch of stuff like that he really shouldn't have. By the way, and I posted a joke about this. Trump did promise that he would settle the war in the first day in office, and he didn't. Now, no one took that seriously. I didn't take it seriously. No one did. But he did say that. He did promise that, and I don't think he should have said that. I don't think you should make like hard statements like that.
Mr. President, you had said you would end the Russia-Ukraine war on your first day of office. Where do things stand right now, and how do you intend?
Well, there's only half a day. I have another half a day left. We'll see. We want to get it done. To negotiate an end to this horror.
I'm just trying to find. He said that Russia has lost 1 million. I'm just trying to find where that clip is. Let's see here. Trump, Russia, what? Okay, so Trump claimed that Russia has lost 1 million soldiers in the war. And he claimed Ukraine had lost 700,000. And this was like the most recent claim that we have at the moment. Now, this just tells you how insane this entire war is, because Ukraine, as we've discussed many times, has said, Zelensky has said Zelensky has stated that Ukraine has lost 43,000 soldiers over the course of this entire conflict. So over the course of this entire 3-year conflict, Ukraine has taken 43,000 losses, which is not possible. Like, that's just blatantly fake. So Trump is claiming that Ukraine lost 20 times that. And he's claiming that Russia lost 1 million. Once again, I'm not entirely sure if this is what casualties actually means. Now, we'll maybe just talk a bit about casualties, because I was talking to Constantine about this on Discord the other day. So the estimates for this are just insane. Now, the only number that we actually have that is confirmed is Mediazona. So Mediazona is a joint project between Pussy Riot and the BBC that has been tracking the confirmed Russian losses. That is through graveyards, death notices, social media, stuff like that. So they have confirmed that 90,000 Russians have died since the beginning of the war. And that is the only hard number that we have. So, generally speaking, in war, about 2 to 3 times the number of deaths are unrecoverable losses. Now, I think that used to be higher, but with better medical technology and the fact that soldiers wear body armor now, that's gone down a lot. So, I don't really want to throw out numbers, but I'd say Russian casualties are probably about 200,000 or so, 200 to 250,000. If I had to guess, is probably somewhere in that neighborhood. That is probably about 90 to 100,000 deaths, and then another 100 to 150,000 severely wounded. Maybe a bit more, but just to be on the conservative side. Ukraine, I would say it's like the numbers are all over the place. I've heard anywhere between 43,000 from Zelensky to over 1 million. So that is, just think about that for a minute. The range estimate is 43,000 to 1.5 million is what we're at in terms of it at the moment. So if I had to guess, I think that the by the end of the war, the kill ratio is going to be about 4-1. As I've said many times, I think early war, the Russians were actually taking more losses than kills. The Russians were taking more losses than kills. That I think Ukraine had a positive kill to death ratio. I think by the time of the spring offensive, it was far in Russia's direction, and it's far in Russia's direction. So I think it's about 4-1 is going to be it. So I would say, okay, so here's my somewhat conservative guess. I would guess Russia is 200 to 250,000 casualties, and Russia is something like, sorry, in Ukraine is 800 to a million casualties. 800,000 to a million casualties is what I would say. Is what I think it is roughly at the moment. But it's almost impossible to know because there's so much propaganda over this whole thing. The point is that there is no evidence Russia has taken a million casualties. If the BBC and Pussy Riot don't think Russia's taken a million casualties, they haven't taken a million casualties. So, yeah. Sersky claimed it was 400,000 Russian casualties in 2024 alone. I don't know how that's even like real. Anyway, so that was Trump's claim. It was kind of bizarre. It didn't make any sense. Especially since like 2 months ago, Trump said there was 600,000 Russian, 400,000 Ukrainian. So Russia somehow took 400,000 casualties in the last month, and Ukraine took 300,000 in the last like month. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Trump just kind of makes shit up sometimes. It is a problem. It is a problem. Trump's a bit like Michael Bay or a lot of these like directors where they have real talent, but they need to be on a leash. Let's see if we can find the Trump Truth Social post. Because Trump said, like, did this really weird post on Truth Social. So we're going to deal with that. How are things in Kakada? Things are awful here. Things are awful here. Let's see here. I'm just trying to find this. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Trump has ordered that the JFK, RFK, and MLK files have been declassified.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, isn't it? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay? Give that to RFK Jr.
So that's been revealed. That's been made public. I think it's they're gonna have very limited redacting in it. You might not have caught it there at the end because the audio is not the best, but so a tradition, from my understanding, is whenever a bill is signed, the pen is given to someone as like a memento. So Trump gave the pen from it to RFK Jr. So we'll see what actually winds up coming out, but hopefully he'll get at least some closure from this. But we'll see what the actual results are. The point is we're making progress, I think. Let's see here. Where are we? There was a Fox News interview, which was kind of bizarre. I'm just trying to find the Russia post because the Russia post was really weird. Here we go. This post was fucking weird. So we're gonna break this one down. Constantine, I found it. It's okay. Yeah, okay. So let's read through this. I'm not looking to hurt Russia. I love the Russian people and always had a very good relationship with President Putin. Now, this is that's positive to start off with. Saying that he doesn't hate the Russian people on a personal level is good. Saying, look, Putin and I get along. We can sit down and we can talk this out. But now it gets like really weird. Despite the radical left's Russia hoax, we must never forget that Russia helped us win the Second World War, losing almost 60 million lives in the process. I don't know where that number came from. Like, there's only one number during World War II that keeps getting higher as time goes on, and I don't think it was the Russian casualty figures. I thought it was like, let me look up what it was. I thought it was like 18 million. I could be wrong. That seems way higher. Okay. Okay, so 20 to 27. So I said it was 18 to 20 million. Okay, so that was at least somewhat close. It is very much though debated how it's counted, because I've looked at I like used to try to fit World War II casualties are very confusing because it depends. Do you count famines or diseases? Like if you're talking about World War One, do you count the Spanish flu? Because my understanding is the Spanish flu largely came about due to all the rotting bodies in the trenches. So is that part of the casualties of World War One? Is the famines that were caused in India by the Japanese and Germans interdicting supply ships? Is that part of World War One? So I've seen like Russian death casualties are anywhere like between like 10 million and 20 million. I would imagine, just off the top of my head, I said 18 million. Most of these sources seem to say that it's somewhere around 20 to 25 million. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is he's saying 60 million, which is like the death toll from the entire war. So I don't know where he got that number from. That's kind of weird. That's not even like due to bad fact checking or like he did whatever. Sorry, by what the news said. He could have just said tens of millions or millions or something. I don't know. It's just weird that he did a specific number. And that it was that. Maybe he was thinking of another historical event and he multiplied that number by 10, but I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to do Russia, whose economy is failing, and President Putin a very big favor. Trump has like, I know I'm bad when it comes to capitalization. He has really weird capitalization. Stop now and stop. Okay, sorry. The other thing is help us win World War II. So the Russians got really pissed off about this because it makes it sound like they helped them. They did America solid. Like America was the one who won World War II, and Russia just was like their backup. They were the sidekick. Whereas in the World War II narrative in Russia, they won the war single-handedly. And America helped out a bit, but yeah. My personal opinion, I think that it's questionable without land lease if the Soviets would have been able to stay in the war. And definitely had the UK have not stayed in the war and kept the oil embargo on Germany, I think things would have gone very differently. So the idea that the Russians... wait, did the stream cut out? What are you people talking about? Definitely had the UK. No, the stream's still going fine. I don't know what Brookie's referring to. But, yeah, if the UK had it pieced out, Germany could have imported oil. Land lease was very important for a number of different reasons, more logistically than anything. So, but The Russians did not take that well. I don't think that that is what Trump meant. I don't think he meant to say or do anything insulting, but they didn't like that. I'm going to do Russia, whose economy is failing, and President Putin a very big favor. Settle now and stop this ridiculous war. It's only going to get worse if we don't make a deal soon, and I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the United States. These are interesting questions. So Russia's economy is not failing. That is just objectively not true. Russia, I believe, is. Let me see what their defense spending is. I think it's 8%. Russian defense spending GDP is okay. It's 6%. Okay, I thought it was 8%. Okay, so it's 6% at the moment. I believe America's America defense spending World War II was, I think, 40% of GDP. Yeah, 40% of GDP per capita. Okay. So it's Russia does not have a war economy at the moment. Catholic boss hog, you can say the R slur. You can call me a retard. Like that's okay. I'm not gonna get upset about that. Just don't, if you post the ends bomb, I'm gonna have to ban you. Not because it bothers me personally, but it could get the channel taken down. So don't post the hard R, please. Now like 20 people are gonna do it. Okay, so Russia's economy isn't failing. Also, America, I don't think does with like. I don't think America does much trade with Russia, does it? Have they ever done much trade? Yeah, so according to this, Russia and America have something like 20 total billion dollars of trade, which is nothing. That's like that's like nothing. Like what is the trade between America and Canada? Yeah, so America and Canada trade per year was $900 billion. And trade with Russia is like $20 billion. So it's not very much. It's not very much at all. It's very cheap. So let's see here. Where are we? He's fat with PPP voice. Yeah, I know I'm overweight. Although PPP like comes from an area half an hour away from where I live, where I grew up. So we have a lot of similar speech patterns. Because yeah, we grew up really close to each other. Also from the same generation. I think I'm a little older than him though. Okay, so that's not the case. The only thing, as Constantine put, that they get from Russia is uranium and oil. I don't know if they get oil directly, but America doesn't really import anything from Russia. It's like a pittance. It's not an important part of their trade. So if they were to completely cut off trade, I guess it would raise uranium prices in America, but that's about it. Let's see. Constantine is sending me some stuff. Well, we'll get to that in a second, Constantine. Thank you for sending that, though. Let's see here. I have no other choice. Okay, tariffs and sanctions on anything. Okay, so that's nothing. Once again, if they were to... Okay, so let's just take a second here. So it is $20 billion. Let me see what the size of the Russian economy is. The size of the Russian economy is approximately $2.1 trillion. So, Yeah, it's like way less than 1%. It's substantially less than 1%. That is the what he's going to do. And various other participating countries. Okay, well, other participating countries. Although that kind of sounds like it's some sort of like deal, like a McDonald's deal, only at participating McDonald's. Let's get this war, which never would have started if I was president, over with. We can do this it the easy way or the hard way, and the easy way is always better. It's time to make a deal. No more lives should be lost. So, yeah. Now, Constantine was nice enough to post the from Bloomberg. So Russia has actually decreased its reliance on oil and gas revenue substantially over the past little while. Oil and gas revenue is important to Russia. I don't know if it's ever really been a majority of their revenue. Maybe at certain points in time, they have been trying to diversify their economy. Russia isn't like Saudi Arabia, though, or the UAE or something like that. Russia has industry, they have technology, they have agriculture, they have other resource sectors. It's not like Saudi Arabia where it's entirely just from the one source. So I don't even really know what this is about. I think the Russians just thought that this was a joke. Somebody's like saying this is like some Godfather shit. Like, I'm going to make them an offer that they can't refuse. Let me just put on the Godfather music. No, I know it's like a big source of to like to do that. It's just okay. Um okay. So that is where we're at the moment. Then we had the thing about the 700,000 Russia stuff and things like that. So I don't know what he's doing. Now, as Constantine says, he thinks what he's doing is he's trying to intimidate Putin, or he's trying to like do some art of the deal, like mob boss stuff, or something, or he's just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. I don't know, but like the Russians aren't like the North Koreans or even like the Iranians. They don't amused by that kind of stuff. They aren't like they don't see it as charming. They don't see it as endearing. They aren't afraid of Trump. They just think it makes him look like a retard. To be honest, they just think it looks fucking really stupid. Um, so we had like a victory and then a massive L like immediately after. So I don't know like what he's even going on about. Okay, so um and he's saying like how he's talking a lot about how he wants to negotiate. Like that's the big thing, we want to negotiate with Russia, and it's almost sounding like he's a little bit desperate to get that negotiation done right away. So once again, maybe I'm overstating this. Maybe this is like a art of the deal thing. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I'm too fair sometimes. Like I feel the need to, if Trump does something stupid, I feel the need to point that out to show that I am not like completely biased, and I will acknowledge if somebody I generally support does something stupid. Maybe I go too far with that, but that was kind of weird. Um, I think that like Trump needs to stay off of truth social media. I've said this numerous times over the years. A lot of the time it's funny and it's based and it's good and stuff like that, but a lot of the time he just goes off the reservation and just says and does stuff that like doesn't make a lot of sense. So I don't know. Anyways, so that's the story with Trump and Russia. Now, people have been saying back and forth. I've seen people say this was the case, and I've also say people say this was not the case. Um, that he cut off aid to all countries except for what was it? Egypt and Ukraine. Was it Egypt and Israel? I'm seeing what people said here because I've seen a whole bunch of different statements about this. So let's see here. Okay, where are we? Russia from. I did like a whole stream earlier this week where I talked about how everything Trump did was great. So I'm trying to kind of be balanced. We'll get into like the executive orders in a minute or two. I'm just not covering the Russia stuff. Okay, foreign aid, United States. Okay, so U.S. is freezing foreign aid until there is a full review on it. To quote Trump, until we figure out what the hell's going on. The exceptions, I believe, are Ukraine, Israel, and Egypt with regards to it. They're going to continue to get it. Also, Gaza is going to continue to get the relief aid. So I have seen a lot of different stuff about whether or not they actually cut off aid to Ukraine. I've seen, yeah. So let's see here. I've seen some people say that he cut off all aid, and some people say he didn't. To my understanding, is non-security aid is being paused, but money is still going to Ukraine in the meantime. Is what I'm going to say. Also, I bring up the social media thing because once again, it's kind of a mystery to me how smart Trump actually is. Because as I kind of pointed out there, he'll say something really like intelligent, and then he'll say something completely retarded, and like they seem to circle around each other, and I don't know how much of that is deliberate or not. So I think they're pausing aid except to Ukraine, Israel, and Egypt, but there is a possibility that the aid might be stopped at some point. So that is the whole situation with the with Ukraine. It's a dead heat on a merry-go-round. Russia continues to push. So let us take a look at real clear politics, because something happened this week that I am honestly kind of in shock of. So Trump has a positive approval rating for the first time in forever. Like, okay, so Trump is, according to current polls, he is at a neutral approval rating. Now, I've seen some people say it's plus 13 or something like that. But if we go over the last... Where is it? Like year, like this time last year it was 55% dislike, 40% like, and now it's turned around. Now it is 48% like, 48% dislike. So it's basically balanced. He has kind of a net positive approval rating. Now keep in mind, Biden's net approval rating was negative 20%, even more than that, perhaps more than that. So Trump is massively out patrolling. Oh no, this is job approval. Sorry, I'm getting confused because there's job approval and then there is favorable, unfavorable. Just when I used to work in polling, we didn't do job approval. We just did favorable, unfavorable, and we use that as job approval. Sorry, I get confused between the two of them sometimes. So Trump's job approval is at +8. So even people who don't like him think he's doing a pretty good job. So it is rare for a president to have that. So his approval rating is like 30% high. Well, maybe not 30%, but like 26 to 28% higher than Biden's. So this is very surprising to me, because Trump did a lot of stuff this week that was not milquetoast. Like he did some stuff that was actually kind of controversial. And so I'm kind of wondering if there's been like a firmware update, if something's changed in the political culture, if we're seeing something bigger here. Because I feel like there's been relatively little pushback compared to some other things. Like I haven't seen BLM or Antifa or like riots or anywhere kind of the pushback that we would have seen even a couple of years ago to the kind of actions that Trump's taking. It doesn't appear to be affected that much in terms of public opinion compared to how it might have been a couple of years ago. I don't know if we're seeing the change or something like that. My best guess is that I do think we're experiencing kind of a Thermidorian reaction, if I'm pronouncing that properly. The Thermidorian reaction, or the Thermidite reaction, was the aftermath of the French Revolution during the Terror. The Jacobins, in particular the Mountain, got so radical that it basically disgusted the people to like the far left or to the left of the French Revolution. And there was a reaction movement that led to the Jacobins just getting guillotined and their political club being banned. Now, the government that succeeded it was not conservative or anything, but it was a lot more moderate than what came before it. So I do think a lot of the woke stuff just went too far. I do think that it did trigger something of a reaction. That's not to say that I think everyone is going to be based now and like America's saved and the West is saved and stuff like that. But I do think they went way too far. And they just like it has led to some lashback, particularly in countries that are relatively conservative like America. Like, I don't think it's led to anything really in Canada, or, well, maybe actually the UK has had some stuff, but I think the US, a lot of the country is relatively conservative, at least by like Anglo country standards. And a lot of the trans stuff in particular, I think just went like really too far. Also, just a lot of middle class people, I think, got afraid of like BLM and the riots that were happening and the out of control crime. Like, I feel like a lot of the pro crime policies they were trying to push through really pissed off a lot of people, and it scared a lot of otherwise liberal people in the suburbs who didn't like when they were just releasing criminals from prison and stuff like that. Also, just now, something we've had that's a little similar to this is in Canada, for the first time in my lifetime, we're having a bit of a pushback against immigration because there's been so much Indian immigration in the last couple of years. And you'll even see this among people who are otherwise left-wing, is they're complaining about immigration now. Now, part of that is due to housing prices and inflation, but the other part of this is what made Indian immigrants different than a lot of other immigrants is that they're flooding white-collar jobs. Normally, immigrants will just take over like minimum wage jobs, blue collar work, unskilled labor, stuff like that, and they'll just serve as kind of a serf class. But Indians are taking over a whole bunch of other jobs. So like office jobs, tech support, stuff like that. They are they're kind of taking over, and the middle class, like white people, are actually having to deal with them, and they don't like having to deal with them, and they're actually witnessing like their workplace go like 50% Indian overnight. And it's not like the Chinese immigrants who can be a little bit annoying, but they can do anything that requires like basic competency because they're intelligent and decently well educated. It's they're having to deal with like half their workplace. Like that's not even an exaggeration. Like literally their workplace will go from being maybe 70% white, like 20% Asian, 10% something else to like 30% Indian overnight, and none of them can speak English. And that's just kind of the atmosphere that they're having to deal with. And that was not something they would have to deal with previously. They might have like one or two Indians who are like upper caste or are decently well educated and aren't that obnoxious. Um, like, here's the thing. The Chinese in Canada get up to some shady stuff. They engage in a lot of counterfeiting and scams and like fraud and stuff like that. But they don't commit violent crime. In areas that Chinese people live in, even if they might be a little dirty sometimes, are not places that you would want to go. When I went to university, I lived in a neighborhood that was 80% Chinese, many of whom were foreign students. I could go out at like 2 or 3 in the morning for a walk, and I would feel perfectly safe. There was no violent crime in the area. There was a lot of garbage all over the place, but I didn't feel like I was going to get knifed. I didn't feel like there was anything really like there was any threat to it. If you go to like Markham, which is a city in southern Ontario that I used to go to a lot because my grandparents lived there, it's probably like 40 to 60% Chinese now. Now it looks like a foreign country in a lot of places in it. A lot of places there's not even really signs in English anymore, but it's like it feels safe. Like you could go and you could walk around one of these majority Chinese neighborhoods, and it's like a nice place to live. It's foreign, but it's like I would feel safe there. I worked in some schools in Markham that were like 70-80% Asian, and you know what? It's not bad. The Asian parents drive their kids to work. The kids are very well cared for. Their parents are really involved in their education. They keep their kids out of shady stuff. Like once again, there's some issues with it, but it at least is like tolerable. It doesn't just degrade everything around them immediately. And if you insert a couple like Chinese or Japanese or something like that into a workplace, then it'll adapt. But when you start inserting like 50% Indians overnight, like people just don't like that. Like it's really bizarre. Like where I live, the other week I was walking to church actually, and there was some like some festival, and everybody on the street was like Indian. And I'm just like, why is Manitoba just full of them? And it was just kind of bizarre. The point I'm trying to make, and I'm sorry for the massive digression, although this is kind of relevant actually to Trump, is that I feel like the left just went too far this time. and they just pissed a lot of people off. And it led to kind of a counter reaction to a lot of the woke shit. I also think a lot of like the minorities didn't like the woke shit. Yeah, all the churches I go to in Canada, the Catholic churches I go to are majority non-white. Generally speaking. One near where I live has Filipino mass. But or Tagalog or whatever the main language in the Philippines is. But yeah, I think a lot of the woke shit just went too far, and I think they pissed a lot of people off, and they inserted themselves into a lot of areas. Like I said, and I refer to like the pro crime policies, the like taking your kids away. Like I feel like a lot of people, like neurotic, middle class white people, didn't like where it was going. So I don't know. People can agree with me or disagree with me. That's kind of my theory at the moment. That's kind of my theory at the moment for how things are, why things kind of got that way. Because it looks like there is a lot of people who aren't that upset about some of the stuff that Trump did. Now we're going to take a look at it. So Trump has actually done, speaking of Indians, that is a terrible picture of her. That is a absolutely awful picture. Oh, it's staring into my heart. I hate to make fun of people's appearance given that I'm overweight, but Melania always looks like somebody took like a sander to her face and it's just this like weird flat plane. Like in particular, sorry, just a side note, just to finish off the previous point. I think in particular, Hispanics really don't like the woke shit. Now, people here who deal with Hispanics a bit more, I feel like they didn't. I feel like the Latinx stuff, the like removing like the Spanish and conquistador stuff, like a lot of that shit, I feel like they really didn't like, and trying to push it on them pissed a lot of people off. Now, people can maybe post in chat how they feel about that. I feel like BLM really pissed off a lot of Hispanics. I think also one of the changes that there's been is a lot of the Hispanics in America have been there long enough that they see themselves as being like it being their home, and they're not just like visiting there anymore. So they want it to be nice. Like, because right-wing governments win all the time in Latin America. I mean, Bukele won, so it's not as if they never vote that way. Okay, so anyways. So Trump signed a whole bunch of executive orders this week, most of which are actually great. So we're going to go through and I talked about this a little while ago, but we're just going to go through some of the big ones. So let's take a look at Trump's cabinet. So I think Trump's cabinet is kind of a mixed bag. People were complaining about it. I don't think it's really that bad. So people were complaining about Marco Rubio. I actually don't think Marco Rubio's like that bad. He's definitely an upgrade from Blinken or Pompeo. I think he decided to kind of throw the establishment a bone, and he picked a relatively mainstream Republican for a top post. My understanding, though, is Rubio's not like has gotten better over time, and he's not great or anything, but he is actually fairly conservative compared to some senators. So I don't think it was that bad an idea to pick someone who's kind of from the establishment as a front man. Although Rubio is one of the like is not like a liberal. I think he's actually quite conservative on a lot of issues. I don't know much about Pete Hegseth. That was kind of a weird one. I actually said prior to the election, I thought Rubio would have been a good um, VP candidate. I said like of possible VP candidates, I said Lee Zeldin or Marco Rubio would have been good ones. But I don't know. I don't think it's terrible. We have Matt Gates's whole. I don't know. Matt Gates got a Giesler op nomination for that. RFK Jr. is interesting. The thing I will say about RFK Jr. is American health is so fucked. I don't really know how RFK can make it worse. Like people are complaining about his vaccines and like the weird theories he has. America is so fucked when it comes to like obesity and all kinds of other shit that maybe we need someone a little bit crazy to shake it up. So I don't think it's that bad. It's good to see Linda back. Lee Zeldin is a good pick. Lee Zeldin's I actually thought that he would be a good RNC head or a good VP pick because he's a very good political operator. Tulsi Gabbard's not bad. Rewarding one of his loyalists, Alicia Stefanik. John Radcliffe, I don't think is actually that bad, to be honest. I think he's one of the more conservative members of Congress. Like Trump mostly picked this cabinet based on loyalty and ideological commitment. I think he learned last time that trying to pick like the people who were the best qualified or whatever or who were recommended was a really bad idea. And he's picking people that he feels are loyal to him or that he can control. Like Doug Burgum for energy and for Secretary of Interior is not bad. A lot of them are not terrible. A lot of them are not the most maybe obvious person, but he tried to basically stack the deck with people he's relatively sure he can trust and that he doesn't think is going to stab him in the back. So I do think it's a lot better. Now people were complaining that this was like the like Zionist like cabinet, but let's take a look at what the what the Biden cabinet was. So like, okay, so the thing, okay, so people were complaining that his Trump's cabinet is too J-ish when the previous one had Tony Blinken, Janet Yellen. Who else was a member of the tribe in this? So I feel like half of them were. It's gone down a lot, I think. Actually, from where it was a year or so ago. Trying to see here, Secretary of Labor. I think it was a higher percentage in the past. We have Pete Buttigieg. Yeah. So it's actually gone down quite a bit. Also, I think we can all agree that like what's his name is a massive improvement over Tony Blinken. Like Rubio's way better than Tony Blinken. So Biden cabinet was Jay's on top of everything except for defense. And defense was led by Stone Cold Lloyd Austin, who was incredibly incompetent. So yeah. I don't know. I don't think Trump's cabinet is that bad. I think it's a mixed bag, but it's fine. Anyway, so yeah, that was the cabinet appointments. Let's see here. So executive orders. So let's just go through a couple of them. We have the executive order trying to prevent the federal government from engaging in censorship. So I believe this includes social media, using law enforcement to try to prevent people from uh, expressing opinions. Um, so I don't know exactly how much these things mean. The president does have a lot of power. He is the chief executive. The executive branch theoretically has to do what he tells them to do. How much they actually do that, I don't know. This is pretty base, though. Under the guise of combating misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, the federal government infringed on the constitutionally protected speech rights of American citizens across the United States in a manner that advanced the government's preferred narrative about significant matters of public debate. Government censorship of free speech is intolerable in a free society. So that's good. So hopefully that'll help some of the leaning that they put on the various media platforms. Let's see, ending weaponization of federal government. So this was, I think, to try to stop a lot of the just abuses by the Justice Department, cracking down on political opponents. So that's also a really good one. By the way, he signed all these on like the first day. There was a hiring freeze. There was a freeze on new regulations. There was a cancellation of, I think, like 76 executive orders from Biden. Let's see here. There's some really good stuff. America withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, I think it was called. This, which I honestly think, if Trump does nothing else, it was worth it solely for him to win because of this. First day in office, complete pardon to January 6th defendants. Grant a complete and unconditional pardon to all other individuals convicted of offenses related to events that occurred at or near the Capitol on January 6th. These people were in jail were convicted of other crimes. They were released from jail with time served. Their sentences were commuted to time served, so they're out of jail. Theoretically, everybody involved with Jan 6 is out of jail now, or will be out of jail very soon. So those people got out. So that's good. Now, people say Trump should have done this last term on his way out, and I don't disagree. My understanding is that he received threats from Republicans in the Senate that they would find the votes to impeach him if he did do the pardon. Now, is that true? Probably. Should he have done it anyways? Probably. But there's a complete pardon. The Jan 6ers are free. They're out of jail. I think like there's footage of them. Let me see if I can find some footage of them being released. Here we go.
Still wearing his orange prison-issued shoes, William Sarsfield is among the first of the January 6th rioters to be free.
Power of prayer is a very strong thing. When I looked out the window,
Note that the CBC is calling them rioters now. They're not calling them rebels or insurrectionists.
and seeing my girlfriend in my truck with a
Now that he's out, he plans to return home to Texas.
relaxation without the feds over my butt.
When you hear people who are
So
Forget the latest now in president.
yeah, so they're out of jail now. Which I mean, once again, if that's all that Trump does, I mean that's something. That's something. At least they're not getting tortured in prison anymore. I don't know. I don't know if pardons apply to civil liability as well, but I mean, he did do it the first day. It's something he promised. I think we have to give him all the credit in the world for that. He stopped the TikTok sale or the TikTok shut down temporarily. We have restoring accountability. Let's see here. He revoked security clearance from basically everybody who screwed him over in the first term. So all these people had their security clearance and other privileges revoked. I think John Bolton is specifically mentioned. Yeah, John Bolton. Yeah, John Bolton had his he was specifically singled out. National security is also damaged by the publication of classified information. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton published a memoir for monetary gain after he was terminated. The book was rife with sensitive information drawn from his time in government. So that's been done. I hope that he also goes and I think he should pardon Assange and Snowden next. I don't know if he will, but I think he should pardon them. I regardless of how you feel about the stuff that they leaked, I think them the consequences of them not breaking the national security do it is worse than whatever it is they did. Let's see. He declared a national emergency at the border. So all departments have to provide full cooperation and whatever resources necessary to try to resolve the situation at the border. I know Assange is free now, but they could still pardon him. And a pardon would ensure like it doesn't have any future legal ramifications. Let's see here. Yep, so you know what else is based? It says Year of Our Lord on all of these, which is awesome. Let's see here. America First trade policy. We'll get to it in a second. Yeah, just GSP, just because I don't know how much it affects his like ability to travel. Like I don't know if Assange could go to America or something like that. Also, I just think it's important from a symbolic significance perspective. Clarifying the military's role. So let's see here. I'm just trying to find this. I think this is where he said, so the Army has been retasked with protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the United States and national borders. No later than 10 days from this effective order, the Chief of Staff, let's see here. United States Northern Command has to present a plan to seal the borders and maintain the sovereignty, territorial integrity of the United States by repelling forms of invasion, including unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling and trafficking, and other activities. So, yep, there's a national emergency. The Army and federal law enforcement are being directed to come up with immediate plans to try to deal with it. Once again, as I said, even if we only get like 30% of the people deported, that is something. Like, at least Trump is trying. Like, at least we're getting like some good executive orders. At least the conversation is being moved in the right direction. I think he is showing that he is at least somewhat committed to it. So they are dismantling, I think, parts of the refugee program. Now, I'm not entirely sure of what it is. I think refugees are being suspended for 90 days while the whole thing is reviewed. India agreed to take a bunch back. India take back Yeah, so Modi immediately agreed that he's going to take back 18,000 Indian illegal immigrants, like the day Trump was sworn in. Which, I mean, it's not a ton, but it's a start. It's a move in the right direction. So we got that. We have some of these are just kind of like it's a hard for me to describe the practical. He's issued an executive order removing or attempting to remove any restrictions on energy. So he's trying to basically remove any environmental or other restrictions on the production of energy with the hope of unleashing it and lowering costs for Americans. We have these. Oh, here we go. Here's one of the big ones. This is the end of birthright citizenship. So birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants is officially over. So previously, people who were born in the United States, regardless of the status of their parents, were automatically American citizens. So Trump has issued an executive order that this is not the case. Now, this is going to have to go to the courts, and there's going to be a lot of litigation over this. But this is where you have the whole concept of anchor babies, where people give birth in America, and then the baby's an American citizen. Now, the reason why the 14th Amendment was passed, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state where they reside, was passed for freed slaves. So the idea was we need to pass an amendment so all African Americans get American citizenship, and they were born there. It was never intended to deal with like a billion Mexicans or any of that stuff. Also, I don't think that illegal immigrants are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, because they aren't. Here we go. The 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to extend citizenship universally to everyone born in the United States. The 14th Amendment has always excluded from birthright citizenship persons who are born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Consistent with this understanding, person born in the States is a national. Okay, so that would be you're born to a parent who's an American citizen. So it does not apply when the person's mother was illegally present in the United States and the father was not an American citizen, or or temporary. So this includes people who are legally in the United States but temporarily so. I think if they're a permanent resident, it might be different. But if you're there on a student, it specifically says student worker tourist visa, and you have a kid, the kid is not automatically a American citizen. So this is a massive, massive win. So this is being published. The other thing I find funny about this is they have to define mother and father. So yeah, there we go. So that was passed. Refugee, securing our borders, restoring the death penalty. Here's an interesting one. I haven't really seen anybody talk about this. But Trump signed an executive order to try to deal with some of the shitty postmodern architecture. So, okay. I want the assistant. Okay, so submit within 60 days recommendations to advance a policy that federal public buildings should be visually identifiable as civic buildings and respect regional, traditional, and classical architectural heritage in order to uplift and beautify the public spaces and ennoble the United States and our system of self-government. Such recommendations shall consider appropriate revisions to the guiding principles for federal architecture and procedures for incorporating community input into federal building designs. So, trying to roll back some of the shitty modern architecture, I guess kind of what kind of is within the local style, or kind of the more classical Greco-Roman style. I mean, that's good. A lot of people complain about that stuff all the time. National energy emergency. Okay, so let's go through some of these. Foreign aid. That was the temporary pause in foreign aid. I'm just going to show this because this is, to me, the ultimate example of shitty modernist architecture. Okay, so this is my beloved Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. So, great museum. I went there all the time as a kid. But it was like this nice, like, brick building, and they put this fucking tumor on the side of it. Like, look at that. Like, look at it. What the fuck? Like, it looks like a cancer. Doesn't it look like a cancer growth? Like, oh. Yeah, like the original building, let's see here, before it had that, was like, looked like that. So it was nice, like, I don't know if that's Victorian or whatever, but it was a disaster. It was bad. So, I mean, once again, even if this is just symbolic, it's shifting the public discourse. Like, even now, in my own little way, we're talking about architecture, and we're talking about architecture matters. That having beauty in public spaces matters. That having stuff that represents, like, the people matters, which I think is all good stuff into the right direction. So, let's see here. Protecting the American people against invasion. Let's see here. Over the past 4 years, the prior administration invited, administered, and oversaw an unprecedented flood of illegal immigration to the United States. Millions of illegal immigrants crossed our borders or permitted to fly directly in. Okay, so this order ensures the federal government, okay, is the policy. So this is just ordering all federal agencies to comply with existing immigration laws, and to do everything possible to assist in the deportation of illegal immigrants. So I'm not going to go, let's see, it has denies benefits to illegal immigrants, all kinds of, just basically everything possible to make it more difficult. Let's see here. The Trump declared the cartels terrorist organizations, which is an interesting thing. So yeah, all the cartels are now foreign terrorist organizations. So we'll see how that goes, if that helps or not. I mean, once again, I think it's a step in the right direction. I mean, they are terrorist organizations. Like the fact that the governments in Latin America basically just have to do whatever they tell them to do, or they just start massively killing people, I think says something. We have the establishment of Doge, the directive to the Secretary of State, which is put America first, defending women from gender ideology extremism, and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Across the country, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex have increasingly used legal and other socially coercive means to prevent men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women. This is wrong. Efforts to eradicate the biological reality of sex fundamentally attack women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, and well-being. The erasure of section language and policy has a corrosive impact, not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system. Basing federal policy on truth is critical to scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and the government in itself. This unhealthy road is paved by an ongoing and purposeful attack against the ordinary and long-term use and understanding of biological and scientific terms, replacing immutable biological reality of sex with an internal, fluid, and subjective sense of self unborn from biological facts, invalidating the true and biological category of women and properly. Let's see. It is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. Under my direction, the executive branch will enforce all sex protective laws to promote this reality. Following definition shall govern all executive interpretations. Sex shall refer to an individual's immutable biological classification as either male or female, and does not include the concept of gender identity. Women or girls and girls shall mean adult and juvenile human females. Okay, so so this is actually the definition that a friend of mine said should be used for male and female. Female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. Male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell. I define it as a woman is a human who only has X chromosomes, and a male is a human who has at least one Y chromosome, is how I defined it. But, yeah. So gender ideology, gender identity, recognizing women as biologically distinct from men. Each agency shall enforce laws. Okay, so agencies shall remove all statements, policies, regulations, forms, communications, or other internal external messages that promote or otherwise inculcate gender ideology and cease issuing such statements, policies, regulations. Agency forms that require an individual's sex shall list male or female and shall not request gender identity. So there's no more other spot. There's no more trans. There's stuff like that. Once again, is this going to necessarily all be implemented? No. But the fact that the president is saying this and he's trying to set this as policy is a massive step in the right direction. Because people are like complaining this is going to get overthrown in court. They're not going to do what Trump tells them to do. Well, at least he's doing this. At least he's issuing these like based executive orders. At least this is getting into the main. Like at least we're talking about this. Okay, so there's more good stuff to come. Okay. Let's see here. Department of Government Efficiency. So, I mean, like, a lot of this, I think, is really good stuff. And radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. The Biden administration forced illegal and immoral discrimination programs going by the name diversity, equity, and inclusion into virtually all aspects of the federal government in areas ranging from airline safety to the military. This was a corrective, concerted effort stemming from Biden's Um, well, I mean, Anti-Annihilator says any EOs can be undone by a succeeding president, but then it makes incoming Democrat and Republican presidents speculate on the T issue. I mean, like it can be undone, but like what else is Trump really going to do? He doesn't have a he doesn't really have much of a majority in Congress or the Senate. He's doing this on his first day. He's setting timelines. He's setting specifics. Like I get that this may not ultimately achieve everything that's set out, but I think that we have to give Trump credit when he does something good. I think we criticize him if he does something stupid or bad, but all of this is really good stuff that he's putting out there. Uh, let's see. Nearly every federal agency and entity submitted equity action plans to detail the ways they have furthered DEI. The public release of these plans demonstrated immense public waste and shameful discrimination. This ends today. Let's see here. Let's see. The Office of Management and Budget, assisted by the Attorney General, shall coordinate and terminate all discriminatory programs, including illegal DEI and diversity, inclusion, and accessibility mandates, policies. Okay, so basically, affirmative action and all that stuff is gone. Each agency and government, let's see here, terminate to the maximum extent allowed by law all DEI, DEIA, and environmental justice offices and positions, including but not limited to Chief Diversity Officer, all equity action plans, equity actions or initiatives, or programs, grants, or contracts. So, if nothing else, it's throwing a hand grenade into the whole thing. So the complaint that I've seen is that a colorblind meritocracy is just as bad as the DEI. I mean, let's be honest. Like, what were people expecting Trump to do? Like, to pass Jim Crow, to pass, like, new segregation, to pass affirmative action for white people? Like, take the win. This prevents, like, all the... Well, hopefully this reduces just the random, like, non-English speakers with no education from the third world who get positions over, like, actual Americans. So I think it's a win. I mean, I think it's really good. Like, you have to obviously say in a certain way. I will say this. I do think that the changing it to Gulf of America is retarded. I in this household, it's the Gulf of Mexico. End of story. Keeping Americans safe in aviation. Let's see here. This is terminating all affirmative action within the federal aviation industry. So I think that is really good. So that's going back to merit based. I'm going to say something maybe slightly controversial. The only form of affirmative action I'm actually a bit sympathetic to is people who are disabled. Maybe that's just because I've benefited from it in the past, but I do have actual sympathy, and if there's going to be tax breaks for hiring people, I don't mind it really for disabled people. Because they are part of your nation fundamentally. They're not random people from India. They're like your people who have been dealt a bad hand in life, and you're responsible for them. So I'm just saying that is like the only form I'm kind of sympathetic towards. I don't think, maybe that's like a really weird thing to say, but I feel all the sympathy in the world towards towards people who have those issues. I do think if the person is qualified to do the job, but they need some additional accommodations, I don't really have an issue with the government giving tax rebates for stuff like that. Like if they need to install like the person can intellectually do the job, but they need like some special equipment, and the government wants to issue tax rebates for that. I don't really have an issue with that. Maybe that makes me like something or other, but the Gulf of America is stupid. Designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations. I mean, they are. Some people are complaining that this might lead to them invading Mexico. I don't know, but I think anything that draws attention to the way that what the cartels are doing on the border is a good thing and tries to deal with it. Let's see, what's this? Okay, that's dismantling the Green New Deal. Donald J. Trump ends DEI madness. So let's see here. Okay, so that stuff is being dealt with. Almost unbelievably, the Biden FAA specifically recruited and hired individuals with severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric issues, and complete paralysis over other individuals who sought to work for the FAA. Wow. Like, if it's an intellectual job and the person can't walk, I mean, like, that's not really but like, if it's something that requires, like, intelligence to do and they're it's bad. That's really bad. So Trump is saying we will reforge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. So people are complaining about that. That's like pause, and that's 1990. I mean, you take the wins where you can. Once again, you can't go to the like American people and say we want to build like the white methno state and only white people are going to get jobs or stuff. Like, you're just never going to sell that, even if that's something that you want. So I think getting rid of affirmative action and not having quotas that's something I can live with. That's 100% better than what we have at the moment. That is just take the W. Let's see here. Nominations to the Senate, defeat the cost of living crisis, national emergency on the southern border, closing the border to illegal immigrants. I don't know who's Andrew Zabowski. Was he a Jan 6th guy? I don't know who that is exactly. Officers convicted in death and cover up. I'm not entirely sure who that is. The Houthis are redesignated a terrorist organization. We have some other good stuff that we're going to deal with. I don't know who Terrence Sutton is. I think he's also related to that. I don't really know the specifics of that. Donald J. Trump declassifies the RFK, JFK, and MLK files. Complete release. Let's see here. So, well, we'll see what comes out. But once again, that is I think, a good thing. I think transparency is good, and I think that is a step in the right direction. There's he is giving, it looks like, the tech bros some stuff, but once again, like, we can complain about the tech bros, and they do a lot. Like, I'm sure there's a lot to complain about. I'm more sympathetic to the guy who wants to get to Mars than I am to the person who wants to, like, cut off your kids' dicks. Let's be honest. At least Elon has a vision. At least he's built some cool stuff. Like, I don't really like it's at least something. I generally support funding for science and technology. I think that stuff is good. Financial technology. This was an interesting one. Apparently, this was a promise he made that there was a specific tribe in North Carolina that wanted recognition. So he gave that to them. I don't really have a position on it. If they are traditionally a tribe, then sure, that's fine. I just find it interesting that he did that. I think Amerindians in some states do actually vote Republican. So let's see here. Was this Born Alive Survivors Protection Act? I didn't see this one actually. Okay, the administration strongly supports the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Okay, so in the United States and in Canada and a lot of other countries, there's often a loophole where you can have something called a post-birth abortion, where they don't provide life-giving care to them. So what they'll do, particularly if the child is born of a botched abortion, is in some places they had like a room, and I forget where it was, in Wisconsin or something, where they would take the babies and leave them there like to die of like starvation or exposure or something like that. And this is an ongoing thing, and this was something that, like, actually Obama, I think, was in Illinois the only person who voted against it, but so he announced his support for that, so that's good. A baby that survives an abortion is born alive into this world should be treated just like any other baby born alive. HR 21 would amend the current law to ensure that the life of one baby is not treated as being more or less valuable than another. I mean, once again, I'm like 100% pro-life, but like, you take what you can get, that is good. Anything that like leads to babies not being abandoned to die, I think is a good thing. Maybe that's just me. This was some like bizarre thing where he talked to MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and he tried to get MBS to like flood the global market with cheap oil and gas. And by flooding it with like cheap oil and gas, that was going to like destroy Russia's economy or some weird stuff like that. Oh, we had another really good pardon. We'll take a look at that. Let me see where this is. Restore American leadership in science and technology. I think that's good. AI leadership. Oh, he called Bukele. Oh, that's cool. Okay, well, let's see what that is. Commemorate. Oh, no. Like, I'm sure some people are going to go like, oh, Trump issued a commemoration of the liberation of Auschwitz. That means that, like, he's a bad president. Okay. Now, there was a pardon he issued for a bunch of pro-life activists. Okay, so pro-life protesters pardoned by Trump. Okay, so President Donald Trump has pardoned pro-life protesters convicted under the FACE Act during former President Joe Biden's administration. These activists were pardoned just ahead of the March for Life demonstration in Washington, D.C. We released 23 people that were unjustly put in having to do with pro-life, and they will be released, and they will be out very shortly. It's disgraceful what happened. So... also the founder of Silk Road, but no administration in history has targeted Christians like the Biden admin. We saw one persecution after another, from shutting down churches during COVID to raiding pro-lifers' homes at the crack of dawn. Every pro-life prisoner Biden wrongfully imprisoned should be pardoned. It's from Josh Hawley. So, what is the FACE Act? Is that... I'm trying to remember what that was. Freedom of Access to Clinic Act. Okay, prevents any obstruction to obtaining an abortion. Okay, so I mean, once again, I think that's really good. I think that's really positive. Even if nothing else, we get some like people out of jail who shouldn't be in jail, then I think that's good. Let's see. JD Vance is something based. Let's see if I can find the JD Vance clip. I'm just trying to find this.
Where the March for Life rally is underway, and JD Vance.
The young people facing a moment of desperation. But by and large, our society, our country, has not yet stepped up in the way you have. And our government certainly has failed in that important responsibility. We failed a generation not only by permitting a culture of abortion on demand, but also by neglecting to help young parents achieve the ingredients they need to live a happy and meaningful life. A culture of radical individualism took root, one where the responsibilities and joys of family life were seen as obstacles to overcome, not as personal fulfillment or personal blessings. Our society has failed to recognize the obligation that one generation has to another is a core part of living in a society to begin with.
We live in a society.
So let me say very simply, I want more babies in the United States of America. I want more happy children in our country. And I want beautiful young men and women who are eager to welcome them into the world and eager to raise them.
Based?
And it is the task of our government to make it easier for young moms and dads to afford to have kids, to bring them into the world, and to welcome them as the blessings that we know they are here at the March for Life.
I mean, like, once again, you can say what you want about Vance and his wife and stuff like that. He went to the March of Life and he said some good stuff. Like, Biden didn't do this. Kamala didn't do this. Kamala kicked the person out for saying Christ is king. Like, this is a massive step in the right direction.
Now, it should be easier to raise a family, easier to find a good job, easier to build a home to raise that family in, easier to save up and purchase a good stroller, a crib for a nursery. We need a culture that celebrates life at all stages, one that recognizes and truly believes that the benchmark of national success is not our GDP number or our stock market, but whether people feel that they can raise thriving and healthy families in our country.
Based. Okay, good stuff.
And that brings me back to where we stand today. Earlier this week, President Donald J. Trump stood in the Capitol Rotunda and took the oath of office, becoming not just the 45th, but now the 47th President of the United States. And I know all of you helped.
By the way, just a slight controversy. So when Trump was sworn in, he technically didn't have a hand on the Bible. So people have complained about that and said that it's like some big thing. So my understanding is that the ceremony, partially I think because it got moved indoors at the last minute, was taking too long and they were behind schedule. And there was a time period where it went over to like it was noon and or whatever. And Biden's presidency had ended, but Trump hadn't been sworn in yet. So briefly, there was not actually a president, so they just kind of rushed it. And they were just hastily swearing him in. I don't think there was any significance really to it. It just probably like they were just going through it. He probably didn't even think about it because, like I said, they were trying to get him sworn in. So he can always do what Obama did and just conditionally retake the office.
With the inauguration on Monday, our country faces the return of the most pro-family, most pro-life American president of our lifetimes. Now, this is the man who delivered on his promise of ending Roe, giving us a monumental, earth-shattering decision. With his return to office, no longer will the federal government direct FBI raids on the homes of people like Mark Houck and other Catholic and Christian activists who are fighting for the unborn every single day. And no longer will our government throw pro-life protesters and activists, elderly, grandparents, or anybody else in prison. It stopped on Monday, and we're not going to let it come back to this country. Instead, and I know you all saw the news, the 47th president has already issued pardons to those unjustly imprisoned. And I want to be clear that this administration stands by you, we stand with you, and most importantly, we stand with the most vulnerable and the basic principle that people exercising the right to protest on behalf of the most vulnerable should never have the government go after them ever again.
I mean, once again, if they actually do it or not, I don't know, but I think that stuff is all good. I think, like, with the exception of just some of the stupid stuff, I think honestly what happened with the Russia stuff is Trump's probably just really tired from doing all this shit, and he probably just said a couple dumb things or posted dumb things or something like that. Like, the dude did all of this in a week. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff is probably ahead, but, like, I gotta say, the stamina and energy of Trump is something I think you have to give the dude a lot of respect for. If nothing else, how old is Trump? Is he like 80? He's 78. Like, the man's 78 years old. He's doing, like, signing, like, 20 executive orders in a day, going to the inauguration, going to a bunch of balls. He's meeting with world leaders. He hit the ground running. Like, Trump, you can say a lot of things about him, but he is not lazy. And he puts the time in. He puts the time in. He shows up at work every day, and he does what needs to be done. And I have to give him a lot of respect for that, especially at 78. If I have like a quarter of his energy at 78, then that'll be a big success. Like, once again, like, you can say a lot of things about him. Like, during the campaign, Trump was doing like 2-3 events a day, whereas Kamala would often do 1 or no events a day. Like, I don't know. I just have to give the guy a lot of respect. So overall, I know we started off a bit negative, but I think a good first week. Well, let's hope we keep it up. I think you have to support Trump when he's doing good stuff, and you have to stick up for him when he's doing good things. And I think that we should view this as a success. A lot of good stuff got done, and just hold Trump to account. Just keep things going, and who knows, maybe some of this will get through the courts or through the bureaucracy. Maybe this will go before the Supreme Court, and we'll get birthright citizenship overturned. Let me see. Who is there anyone who's going to retire from the Supreme Court this time? I think, let's see. How old is everybody? Because Trump might get another pick or two. So Clarence Thomas could retire. I don't know if he wants to retire. I'm just thinking about it because he would be able to. They'd be able to pick someone younger. Although Clarence Thomas and Alito were like the two best justices, like by far. So, but they might want to retire just so that they can appoint people beforehand. But I don't know. They're both really solid. Now Sonia Sotomayor has, I think, diabetes. I think she has diabetes. Yeah, so I don't know how what condition that she's in. So he might actually get another Supreme Court pick or two. So, but I don't know. Like, I don't want Clarence Thomas to go. Like I said, I think that Clarence Thomas should be made Supreme Justiciar of Black America, and they should just have him like rule. Let me see. Supreme Court words. Where is the chart's really funny? Because people make like make a lot of fun of this chart, where it's like the amount people talk. And Thomas is like way down there. Justice Jackson is like way up there. I just find it funny. A lot of, I don't know, people shit on Clarence Thomas. It is actually like, I do actually think like there's that whole campaign against like Clarence Thomas a while back. I do think that actually was racist. Like that was like Democrats are the real racists. Just how like much they shit on him. I will say this. One of the biggest examples of what I would say is actual misogyny is how the left treated Sarah Palin. I was like, I considered myself like a socialist at that point in time, or like I was on the left, and I got really disgusted with how Sarah Palin was treated by the media. I don't know. Like it's some of the stuff they said about her, the porn videos they made featuring her. What was it? David Letterman made a joke about her daughter getting raped. Like there's some really just fucking gross shit. Like I don't know. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm pearl clutching, but I know she's a goofball, but I always have kind of a soft spot for Sarah Palin. Yeah, so maybe Clarence Thomas will retire and Alito. Although once again, you know what? I'll say this about George Bush and George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush at least gave us Clarence Thomas, and George W. Bush gave us Sam Alito, who are both national treasures. So I don't know, a lot of good stuff. I hope people enjoyed this summation of the first week. I hope people found it interesting. As always, God bless everybody. More